Welcome to Mad Scientist Barbecue. I'm Jeremy Yoder, and today I'm going to show you how to smoke some pork butts. We've got 2 pork butts here. It seems like they always come in packs of 2 when you buy them at the grocery store. I'm going to start with just trimming off a little bit of this excess fat. See, pork butts are a really fatty cut already, and so they don't need tons of extra fat on the top to keep them moist. So I'm going to got a paring knife here, and I'm going to start trimming off this fat that's right on the top. Just some of this excess fat that you don't need. No need to keep it around, so let's get rid of it. Because I don't particularly like eating huge chunks of fat in my pulled pork sandwiches. So I'll just trim off some of this excess here. And after that, there's really not much to do. You know, you don't have to go on a crusade to get rid of all of this fat, but trimming off some of it certainly won't hurt you. Alright, I've trimmed off some of the fat, not very much really at all. I just took off an amount that I thought was reasonable because I didn't want to eat huge chunks of fat. And other than that, I just pretty much left it exactly as it is. I did put a little salt on it already because my dry rub that I made has no salt in it, so I can vary how much salt I put on different things. I might want more salt on a pork butt than I would say on pork ribs, because pork ribs are thin and they can't take too much salt. This can take lots of salt, so I keep them separate. If you make your own dry rub, pay attention if you put salt in it or if you leave it out. And then also if you buy a commercial dry rub, it's probably going to have salt in it. It's probably going to be completely set up, ready to go. You just pop it open, start sprinkling it all over your meat, and you'll be ready to cook. But mine isn't like that, so I did put some salt on it, and now we're ready to use the dry rub. This is just an old container. It used to have taco seasoning in it, but I filled it up with my own dry rub. It's pretty simple stuff. It doesn't have salt in it, like I said, but it's got pepper, garlic, onion, paprika, brown sugar, things like that. Just basic pork rub ingredients. You can find any recipes you would like online. I'm sure there are lots of great ones out there. But this is a simple one that I use. So let's go ahead and get these rubbed down. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to be generous with the amount of rub I put on these because they're big chunks of meat. You know, you don't have to skimp and you don't have to worry about over seasoning the meat because these are big, thick pieces of meat that you're going to have to work really hard to over season. And it doesn't have to be perfect and beautiful or anything, but what it can be is even. That's the biggest thing. So that's why I put this in a shaker and I'm not spreading it on by hand, because it's harder to get an even coat all the way around the meat if you're doing it by hand. Not impossible, some people are good like that, I'm just not that good. So I'm getting all the sides, the top and the bottom. One word of warning about a rub: you don't want to have something that has too much brown sugar and or white sugar in it, because what you don't want is it to burn. A good thing is caramelization, which is not the same thing as burning. Caramelization is a reaction that happens between the meat and the heat that makes things taste really good. But if you put too much brown sugar on there, what can happen is instead of just caramelizing, it can burn. Okay, I think that's good enough for that guy right there. We'll move on to number 2. Now you might find some recipes online that tell you to separate out certain muscles and cut those into medallions and things like that. Those are competition recipes. There's nothing wrong with those for the purposes of competition, but if you're just making this for your family or you have some friends over, you have a get-together of some kind, don't worry about all that. That's way too complicated. This doesn't have to be any more complicated than taking a piece of meat, putting some seasoning on it, and putting it on a smoker. And that's exactly what we're going to go do. We're out here at the smoker right now, and it's already up to temperature. I don't want to leave this open for too long, so I'm going to throw these pork butts on there. One thing I will say is I'm going to put the bigger one in front, because it's going to take more heat than the smaller one. So I'm going to put them in line, one behind the other. So first I'll put on the small one right here. I'll put this all the way in the back, kind of shield it from the heat, the extra heat. And then the bigger one is going to go right in front, and I cook these fat side up. And when I say I'm putting the bigger one in front, I mean I'm putting it closer to the fire. So the closer to the fire, the hotter it's going to be. So this one's further away, and this one is much closer, so it's going to absorb more of the heat, more of the smoke, and kind of shield this one from getting too hot or cook too fast or burn too much or anything like that. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to let these guys cook. let them hang out for a couple hours, and maybe come by periodically, maybe once an hour, spray them with some apple cider vinegar. Basically, I'll do that every time I put more wood on the fire. Okay, the pork butts have been out here for about 2.5 hours. I think they're going to be looking really good. I was out here once before and just sprayed them down with some apple cider vinegar and put another chunk of wood on the fire. Let's take a look at it. Let's open this guy up here. Okay, that's how they're looking. You'll notice I have a meat temperature probe and then a probe to find the temperature of the smoker itself, because this does have a thermometer and that's a good general gauge, but it's not perfect. So I use this. I think it's made by Maverick, but it's the Big Green Egg brand that I just got because I needed one day and I went to the local barbecue store and grabbed it. But it'll give you 2 readings and it'll send it wirelessly back to your house. Right now the meat is about 135 internal temperature. The smoker, well, it's really low right now because the lid is open. But let's spray this with a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And I spray it for 3 reasons. Number 1 is the vinegar in the spray kind of cuts the fattiness of the pork. It's already fatty, and so if I'm going to spray anything on it, I want it to kind of counteract the fattiness and richness that the pork already has. Number 2 reason is because by spraying it, it's going to lose a little bit less water, and so it'll retain a little bit more moisture in the meat. And then the 3rd reason is because moist meat will absorb smoke. Dried out meat won't absorb any smoke. So what happens is the gas molecules in the smoke actually dissolve in the water and then can penetrate deeper into the meat. Now if the meat is dry and crusty, no smoke is going to adhere, certainly not the kind of smoke that you want. And so those are the 3 reasons that I would recommend spraying with something. It doesn't have to be cider vinegar, it can be water, it could be hot sauce, it could be anything that you choose. You could do it with beer if you want. Okay, anything you choose, you can spray it on there for those 3 reasons. It's going to counteract some of the fattiness if it's acidic. It's going to help smoke adhere to the meat, and it's going to keep the meat from drying out too quickly. We're getting ready to wrap our pork now, and so I'm getting some aluminum foil out. I'm just going to pull off about 2 sheets for each pork butt that we've got on there. And one interesting help is that if you get a box of aluminum foil and you're trying to take the foil out and the roll keeps coming out of the container, there are these tabs that you push them in and it holds the roll in place while you're trying to do it. Alright, it's been about 6 hours since we put these pork butts on, and the temperature that they've reached internally is about 163. And so we're going to take them out and wrap them in foil because we don't want them to lose any more water. We want them to reach an internal temperature of about 203, and that's going to happen a lot faster if we wrap them in aluminum foil. So the meat is going to kind of cook in its own juices, and it's going to steam in there, and it's going to break down all the collagen and make some really tender, juicy pulled pork. And about 163 to 165 is usually when I come out and wrap the meat. All I'm going to do is put a little bit of apple cider vinegar in the wrapping with it, and then throw them back on the cooker and cook it until they reach an internal temperature of 203, 205 maybe. Now what you can do is you can take the pork butts, wrap them in aluminum foil, and put them inside in your oven to finish them up. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because at this point they're not going to absorb any more smoke or get any more barbecue flavor from the wood that you're burning. But for me, it's just easier to do it all in one place, so I'm going to wrap these guys up and finish them off. So I'm going to grab this pork butt right here with a paper towel, lift it off of the grate, put it onto my foil, pull this off. I don't want to destroy the pork that we got on there. And one of the things I want to do is put a little apple cider vinegar in there because it'll start steaming the meat. So I just spray it with a little bit of the vinegar. It doesn't have to be a ton. I just want some extra moisture in there to aid in steaming the meat. And then we'll wrap it up. And 2 layers of foil. Put this guy back on the cooker. Alright, that looks good. Now, same thing for the smaller pork butt. Pull this guy off, lay it on the foil, give it a good spray. We'll wrap it up. Stick it back on the cooker. And we're ready to finish these guys off. Okay, it's nighttime now, but these pork butts have been cooking on our smoker now for about 10 hours. So I'm going to pull these guys off And I'm going to take them inside, let them rest for a little while, maybe 45 minutes or so, and I'm going to pull them apart and make sandwiches. So I'm going to take one of these guys off, I'm going to place it in the glass bowl, I'm going to remove this foil. I want to catch all this juice that came out of this pork butt while I was cooking it. And so I'm going to open up this foil and let all that goodness drain into this bowl. Drain all that in there. Ah, that looks delicious. And it smells amazing. Make a puppy want to pull a freight train. Woo! Okay, so I'm going to take this pork butt, I'm going to roll it out of the foil into this glass bowl. I'm just going to get in there with these tongs, but first I'm going to pull out this bone, and actually I can get this with my hand. Just pull it apart, it just comes right out, and that is a sign of a well done pork butt. I'm just going to start twisting, tearing these chunks of meat apart. I've let them rest for a while, so they're not quite as hot as they were when they came off the cooker, but they're still pretty warm. And I'm just going to twist them up in here. I'm leaving all the juice in here because that's just more flavor to add to it. And I'm going to do this until they're about sandwich-sized pieces. And really, apart from sauce, that's all there is to do. This is our pulled pork product right here. This is the final result of all of that time we spent cooking. So I'm just going to put this on a sandwich. I'm going to grab a big hunk right here and lay it down. Actually, I think I might get just a little bit more. You can add whatever sauce you like best. You can add vinegar and chili flakes. You can add traditional barbecue sauce. I'm actually really partial to a Carolina mustard sauce. And so I'm just going to spread some of this that I made here at the house around this pulled pork, and it is going to be delicious. I'm going to smear that around a little bit. And that, to me, looks like a perfect pulled pork sandwich. Cover this up and I'll give it a shot here. Oh yeah, that is really good. Woo! Make you want to slap your own mama. Man, that sandwich is great. You taste the smokiness, you taste the savory richness of the pork, and then that Carolina mustard sauce kind of cuts through with some acidity. It is absolutely phenomenal. I would definitely recommend that you try this at your house. Try it on your friends. Maybe have a backup sweet barbecue sauce or something for them in case they don't like the acidity. But man, that pulled pork is phenomenal. And anybody can do it. There was no trickery. There was no fancy cooking magic or witchcraft involved. It was just straight smoke plus meat equals good. And I know that you're going to love this if you make one for yourself.